My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my ranking of all the movies based on Nicholas Sparks' books. And this video will have spoilers for the movies mentioned, so there's your warning. But I feel like I was a lot more positive on this review series than people were expecting. Like, they're definitely not all great, but still some enjoyable movies here. So, let's begin with the worst. And thinking about it, I have to go with Message in a Bottle. This movie just did absolutely nothing for me. I watched it a couple weeks ago and it's already fading away. Like, I can barely remember what happens. I know he dies at the end of the movie, and there's a bit of emotion there, I guess, but just not enough. Kevin Costner, I thought was really bland. I don't think he's good in movies like this. Robin Wright's performance did nothing for me. Just a really terrible and boring movie, so that's why it's last place. But just barely edging it out in 10th place, we've got Dear John. Channing Tatum has given some great performances before, but he is so unbelievably bland in this movie. Like, he just did nothing for me here. And then you've got Amanda Seyfried, who's maybe a bit better, but still far and away from one of her best performances, and I just didn't believe their romance for a second. Everything this movie was trying to do completely fell flat for me, and it just really bored me. The ninth best movie is Best of Me, which is mildly frustrating because this movie does have some good ideas. I do like the relationship between Luke Bracey and Leah Labardo. In fact, I think Leah Labardo gives the best performance in this entire movie. She can be very charming and likable, and I do like how these two form a relationship. But just the way the story progresses gets so over the top for me to the point where it completely takes me out. When things escalate with the dude's dad and he ends up getting killed, and then it turns out that her son has his heart. My eyes rolled all the way to the back of my skull. It is just so far fetched, and the main relationship between James Marsden and Michelle Monaghan also fell flat for me. I don't think they had any chemistry. So there was maybe something here, but just a really terrible movie. The eighth best movie of the bunch is maybe the most frustrating one, and it's The Choice, because I do like Benjamin Walker and Teresa Palmer for the most part in this movie. I thought the first two acts were charming, romantic, sweet, not perfect, but definitely enjoyable enough. But the movie takes a turn in the last act where it just speedruns through all their big life events together. And like, I feel like the fact they get married and have kids should have been made into a bigger deal, but it's really not. And then he's standing her up again. It doesn't seem like he's the best husband. And then she goes into a coma, and I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, it just feels like we're following the cliches for the sake of it. You didn't have to go in this direction, and it just ended up ruining the entire movie. Also, it's weird how they wrote Alexandra Daddario's character, because I really liked her in this movie, but they make her out to be toxic, and I never got that impression. So, anyways, frustrating movie. The seventh best is The Last Song. And yes, you do get the romance here between Miley Cyrus and Liam Hemsworth, which I'm going to be honest, I didn't really find that they had much chemistry. But the movie mainly focuses on her relationship with her father, Greg Neal, and this also didn't really work for me. I think the movie can be mildly entertaining, but yeah, I don't know. Like, it's one of those movies where there's not much great here, but there's also not much terrible here. It's just a consistently bad movie, but I don't mind Miley Cyrus's performance. I think she has a nice presence to her, but still falls short. The sixth best in this series is The Lucky One. And this is another frustrating one because I do think Zac Efron gives a decent performance. My issue is that he's far too perfect to the point where it completely takes you out of the movie. Like, he is just the most exceptional human being, and I didn't really care for that. I thought Taylor Schilling did a good job. I thought the two had good chemistry, but the entire Guardian Angel storyline didn't really work for me. But once the movie gets going, I kind of stop caring about that. But then the movie loses me again at the end. Well, the abusive boyfriend gets killed after he snaps, and I don't know, it just got too over the top. So it has its nice, sweet, charming moments, but it gets bogged down in the movie around it. The fifth best movie is Night in Wadenthi, which I'm sure I'm mispronouncing, but I'll continue to do so. This is actually the opposite of the choice because I didn't really care for the first two acts. I thought Richard Gere and Diane Lane were fine. They had fine enough chemistry. Their romance was nothing special. And the backstory for the characters didn't really do much for me. And I do like the setting, but the first two acts, very flawed. But the last act is what got me to just barely like it. Well, they keep talking back and forth, and she's getting excited about this idea of a new life with this new guy. She's hopeful. And then, as a result of him being a changed man, he ends up paying the price and he tragically gets killed. And you do feel the emotion here, and as you see the mom struggling and how does she tell her kids, and I thought it was just really effective. You know, it kind of brought the movie home for me. And I thought James Franco, in his one scene where he has to deliver the news, did a really great job. So, yeah, it's still not great, but the emotion landed to the point where it really got me caring for the characters. The fourth best, and there's quite a jump in quality here, is Safe Haven. This movie might be a bit too long, but I really like the story being told here. It reminded me of the 1992 movie Sleeping with the Enemy. Like, it had a nice thriller vibe to it that I definitely enjoyed, but the romance really worked. It's sweet, it's charming. Josh Dumas does a great job, and I like how human he feels. Julianne Hough has a really nice presence to her. I liked what she brought to this movie, and I was surprised at how much I enjoyed this one. The twist that Warren Shabowski is actually a ghost of his dead wife, that didn't work. Completely unneeded. Didn't add anything, just a baffling decision, but there's still enough here. The next one, the third best Nicholas Sparks adaptation, is The Longest Ride. I really enjoy this movie. My issue is that the story with Una Chaplin and Jack Houston, it's fine, but I don't really think it was necessary. It felt like it was following the cliches of a Nicholas Sparks adaptation for the sake of it. And it kind of does bog the movie's pacing down ever so slightly, but everything with Britt Robertson and Scott Eastwood I really liked. I thought they both gave strong performances, and their chemistry is just great. I like how he treats her like a lady and he's a proper gentleman. I like how we get the conflict between country life and city life. And I like the whole warrior aesthetic of this movie at times. And even the note the movie ends on, like it's maybe a bit too happy and a little too good, but it still worked for me. So yeah, I just think the strengths of this movie is in the relationship. It just really landed for me. So that's why it's the third best. The second best is A Walk to Remember. And I never saw this movie before, and I watched it with low expectations, but it completely worked for me. I gave it a 7.5, but I'm ever so tempted to go up to an 8. Like, I really loved so much of this movie. Mandy Moore gives a great performance. She is so likable and charming and just pleasant. And Shane West, I think, does a real great job too. And I like how you've got the popular bad boy falling for the goody goody two shoes Christian girl, and just how authentic their relationship felt. How she encourages him to be a better person, and everything's looking great, but then the gut punch of what's happening with her and how she's dying, it really landed for me. I thought this movie was powerful. The fact that someone who you love so much could be taken away from you so soon is just, I don't know, this movie just got me in the feels. It really did. The issue is that the editing fucking sucks. Like, the constant fade in and fade outs, just a baffling choice. But, man, I really love so much of this movie. And I still recommend it. I might bump my score up on a rewatch because there's so much. Yeah, I love this one. I really do. But my favorite is The Notebook. I loved it when I first watched it, and I still love it to this day. I just think it is a great romantic story. You really care about these two characters and their relationship and the pressures they face from society, and how the movie, takes place over the span of years, and how she eventually moves on and finds someone else, and they come across each other again. She has to choose between her new acceptable boyfriend, fiance actually, or Ryan Gosling. And I like how they didn't make James Marsden character into a complete dick. He's actually a good guy by all accounts. And there's just so much here about passion, about love, about romance, and what it actually means. And it's just highlighted by the story between James Garner and Gina Rowlands, where we see that he stood by her side decades later, and how they loved each other and lived a full and happy life. And the fact that she's losing these memories is just tragic, and it's just a heartbreaking movie. It really is. I think Ryan Gosling gives a great performance. Rachel McAdams does too. They have such fantastic chemistry. And then James Garner and Gina Rowlands are also fantastic here. And I don't know, I just feel like this movie just fully delivers in everything you want in a movie like this. Great characters, the emotion lands, it's romantic, it's actually got depth to each character, and I just feel like this is the epitome of Nicholas Sparks' adaptations. It is just one of the greatest love stories ever. I love it, and that's why it's my favorite. I do want to say before I close out this video that I find it funny just how similar some of these movies are. Like, they have multiple love stories being told at the same time, or they might be a love triangle or a love square. They usually take place in a very nice location. there's usually some form of notes or pictures that come into play. There's usually someone who dies. There's usually pressure between the upper class and the lower class. There's just so many similarities that when you look at these movies, you can definitely tell that Nicholas Sparks likes to rely on certain cliches, but if it's well written enough and if the actors have enough chemistry, then I really don't mind. But yeah, anyways, Nicholas Sparks movie adaptations. What's your ranking? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more videos soon. And Gavin, out.